Welcome back to another episode of Out of the Bubble, and this week I'm joined by Jayne Mayled, who is the founder of White Hot Hair. If you don't know about this hair care brand, they are a specialist hair care brand for silver, grey and white haired women, and for somebody who's got exactly that, I am a huge fan and use their products all the time. So I'm excited to be joined by Jayne today to find out exactly where she got the inspiration from to create the brand, and also let's hopefully break some of those stigmas attached to grey hair too. So I'm looking forward to talking to Jayne this morning. So I am delighted to be joined by Jayne Mayled today. Good morning, Jayne. Or good afternoon.
Good morning. Oh, yes, it is.
lovely to be connected on here with you. For anybody that doesn't know about you and the brand, how do you describe yourself?
Well, I'm the founder of White Hot Hair, which is a specialist hair care range for women with white and grey hair. I guess that's how I would describe myself.
And when did you set it up? Because it's not that long ago.
Well, I launched it in 2013, so
right.
Yes, it is 7 years old now. Yeah.
Right. And your background prior to this has been in PR and marketing. Had you always wanted to set up your own brand, or is this something that's just kind of evolved?
It's kind of evolved. I mean, I have worked in marketing for most of my life, and I also do run a design agency. And so I am used to creating brands for other people, but not actually the whole hog. So it really came from a place where I stopped dyeing my hair when I was in my early 50s. And I'd always sort of worked in and around the beauty industry. And when I stopped dyeing my hair, I was really amazed at the sort of response from different people to the fact that my hair wasn't any longer coloured. And I realised I did need to do something to look after it a little bit differently. And I looked at the sorts of products that were available for white and grey hair. And, you know, there's plenty of stuff around. But there wasn't anything that really felt right for me. I wanted a really simple products that that smelt gorgeous, that made me feel good about looking after my hair. Because one of the things that I realised was that actually, whether you are in love with dyeing your hair or not, there is part of it that's very much part of your beauty sort of routine, and that kind of just had your hair done feeling, that when you don't colour your hair, you don't have any of that. And just because I don't colour my hair doesn't mean I didn't want to look after it with, you know, lovely products or shampoo that smelled great. So I started to look at kind of what was available. And but the thing I suppose most of all that struck me was that there was either a bit of everything was very sort of discreet, and you know, that grey hair was a little bit of a sort of shameful thing. I mean, things have changed a lot, I have to say, since, 7 years ago. Or didn't have the sort of upbeat sense of just being great beauty products. And that's what I was looking for, and I couldn't find it. So I decided to do it myself. And I didn't really have any experience at all in product manufacture or any of the rest of that, but I found a fantastic manufacturer in Yorkshire who's still with me now, with great people who helped me sort of work out what it was that I wanted to do. So that's where it came from.
I think it's so, I hadn't even thought about it, but you're so right about that feeling of being at the hairdressers, because when you're having to colour your hair, like I used to have to go nearly every 6 weeks to have a full colour, but that was a treat in terms of you'd come out and your hair be all blow dried and you'd feel glamorous. And when you don't have to go to the hairdressers that often, you do lose that. So I hadn't even thought about that, but you're so right.
Yes, I think that that sense that one of the things I felt very strongly about is there was this huge association with having let yourself go. And again, I think 7 years ago, things have changed since then, but the kind of assumption that you really have sort of given up, and that almost, you know, I said to people, you know, it's not all about, you know, elasticated waists and wide fitting shoes and I'm not dyeing my hair. It wasn't really about that. But I love beauty products, and I you know, I wanted to use something that made me feel good. And so just because I wasn't going through that routine, I still wanted to feel as if I was doing something to look after the hair that I now have, which is not quite as white as yours, but
it's a lovely white. How old were you when you first started going grey?
I was a teenager, so my hair was very, very dark, and I had grey strands in my hair from really the age of about 17. And my mother was completely white by the time she was 30, and she never dyed her hair, ever, actually. So I started to colour it really not to cover the grey, but just for fashion, I suppose, back then. And I used to henna my hair, used to do all sorts of things. And then I just completely lost sight of what its colour was. And now, you know, I'm 63 now. I wish I'd done it years ago, because I love silver hair on young faces as well. Looks gorgeous. And of course, I covered it up. And by the time I'd stopped dyeing it, I had no idea what was underneath.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I actually look at pictures of when I was younger with really dark hair, because I dyed it all different colours, and I actually think this suits me so much better than the dark. It looks really harsh. Do you think having a mum that had that silver grey hair was a really good role model for you, so you were less scared about going grey?
No, I don't actually. But I don't think, probably. My mother was one of the least vain people that you could ever meet, and she was very outdoorsy, and she never really thought about colouring her hair, but also she wasn't particularly interested in clothes. She didn't really wear makeup. She'd have a lovely red lipstick, which was look great. And I suppose I thought of my mother as being an older person with grey hair. So I don't think then I would say that she was a good role model actually for it, because I sort of associated that with a lack of vanity, which nothing wrong with that either. But no, I wouldn't say that she wasn't a style icon. I would probably say, and she'd be the first. I mean, she's no longer with us, but she'd be the first person to agree with that, I think.
And what made you stop colouring it? Was it a kind of an instant decision that you woke up one morning and said, right, that's it, I've had enough? No,
not really. I think the truth of it was getting harder and harder for it to look good dyed. And I got to the point where it probably looked the way I wanted it to look for about 1 week in every 6. So when I first had it done, it was too dark. It was about right for about a week, and then it would get that awful sort of orangey tint, which I now know is because it was virtually white underneath. But I have been with the same hairdresser for 25 years. She's fab, and she kept saying to me, "Look, this is getting harder. Why don't you stop doing it?" She did sort of coax me into some lighter colours in the summer and all of the rest of it. And I say to her now, I think you kind of tricked me into it, really, because at the beginning I said, well, look, we'll just let it go a bit. And then I didn't set off with great intent to stop dyeing my hair. And I can distinctly remember saying to her, I don't want to be a grey-haired person, which again seems ridiculous, and it's everything that I'm kind of fighting against now in terms of other people feeling like that. And then it sort of happened over probably about 18 months, and I've never looked back.
Yeah, and I think you're so lucky to have found a really positive hairdresser that helped you, because I talk to lots of women that actually struggle with their hairdresser to try and get them to embrace the grey and let them and help them. How did your friends and family react to you going grey? Were they all supportive?
Well, I think I got a mixed response from some people. Certainly, I have 2 sisters who have both stopped dyeing their hair subsequently. My elder sister had chemotherapy and she grew her hair back. It was silver and she's never dyed it again. My younger sister's a redhead and her hair is not the same colour as mine, but she did carry on dyeing it. She's now stopped. My family wouldn't care whether my hair was, beautifully supportive, lovely. I think in my sort of professional life, a lot of young women was really complimentary and loved it, because in a way they saw it without any of the stigma of what it might mean, and they just thought it was a cool colour and they liked it. So I had loads of compliments. I think from some women my own age, it was a bit like looking into the face of the Grim Reaper. I think they thought that I was somehow holding a mirror up to their own aging process at the same time. And there was one particular occasion which I've recounted a few times, where there's a person who I didn't know terribly well, and she actually had the exact same birthday as me to the year, and she had a lovely funky short sort of dyed red crop, and it was actually at somebody's funeral, and she hadn't seen me for a long time, and I was actually speaking and at the front, so she got a chance to sort of have a look at me, and afterwards she came over and she said, "Jayne, your hair looks terrible. You really must dye it again, and you need to cut it properly." And she was absolutely horrified that I could have done it. And she didn't think there was anything rude or anything. And I just laughed and I said, well, I like it. But no, I think in general, I think there were people also, I don't know whether you find this, that sometimes people feel they need to apologise to me for dyeing their hair.
Yes. Yeah.
People it's a really strange thing. People will say to me, oh, I love your hair. And then they'll sort of slightly self-consciously touch their own and say, but I can't do it, or I'm not ready for it, or and I say, look, we're not the hair dye police. I don't mind what anybody does. Just do what makes you feel good.
Why is it that we're so... You're right. Younger people, younger women really love grey hair and they've completely got their heads around it. I get stopped all the time by young girls asking, about my hair. Whereas women my own age group seem to still really struggle with it. Why is this stigma still in 2020 that women can't accept grey hair as easily as they should do?
I know, it's fascinating, isn't it? And I think that there's been, I would say in the 7 years I've been doing this, there's been a slight shift. But I'm acutely aware, and I don't know whether you find it, that I can go to places where I'll be the only grey head somewhere amongst a mass of women my age. And I think people are still, women I think still are very frightened about it. And I think that if you look at the history of women dyeing their hair, it is fascinating in terms of what it did for women feeling, confident, able to, be taken seriously in the world for longer and all of the rest of it. There's lots of sort of social and historical sort of connotations of dyeing hair. But I desperately want my daughter and the next generations not to feel that our currency is about looking young. Because that's the other thing, that a lot of people assumed that I would only have done it if I thought it made me look younger. And I don't think it makes me look younger. I don't think it probably makes me look old. I've no idea really, but that wasn't the reason for doing it. And this pressure to, the way I've described it is, to either be clinging on or crumbling. There's two extremes that we're sort of potentially faced with as women, and it's not like that. I like wearing makeup. I'm interested in clothes. I've got a zest for life. But this sort of tyranny of feeling that we've got to be perpetually 35. It's something I don't want for my daughter at all.
No, I'm exactly the same. And you obviously have great communication with you've built up a community around white hot hair for women. What kind of feedback do you get from them about their experiences and how your products have helped them?
Well, I think one of the things I would say about our community overall is how kind people are. One of the things I love about it is that when people choose to share their selfies or put pictures up of themselves, you don't have to be a supermodel. Everybody is just saying, you look beautiful, you look lovely. There's a real acceptance, which I really love. That sort of mutual cheerleading is a lovely thing. Really positive thing. And we do advertise, and if we're advertising on Facebook, people comment who are not in our community, if you like, and then you get a mixed bag. When I first appeared in some of our ads, and people would say, God, she looks awful, what's she doing advertising hair products? And also people are incredibly rude, but that doesn't matter. But in our own community, I think people, they love seeing what other people are doing with their hair. They really, really like that. They're very, very encouraging. I think the other thing I found at the beginning was, because I literally did start from scratch, I was packing the orders. It was very, very small. And I think also there was a sense of a 50-something woman, also starting a small business and sort of doing all of that. So there was a real sense of support, and some of our sort of customers or community sort of friends, if you like, I feel as if I know them. They've been following us and being with us for sort of 7 years, and that's lovely. But it's the warmth and the support for each other that I really, really love.
And how difficult, going back to the fact that you put yourself out there at the beginning, you really did kind of stick your head above the water and say, this is what I'm doing, and you used yourself in images. How difficult did you find all that part of kind of saying, okay, this is what I'm doing and I am new to this, but it's going to be okay?
Well, I think you there were parts of it that I suppose I'm still, even though we know this is the way the world works, amazed that people have got the time and energy to comment on things that negatively, that don't really impact on their lives at all. Because I certainly couldn't. If people will say, "Well, I would never do that," and say rude things, about it. Could be me, it could be one of our models or anything else. And I think it's very sad that people feel that they want to do that. In a way, in the world of hair care, most of the hair care we buy comes from about 4 global companies in the whole world. We're very, very, very tiny, and the only thing we've got really is our authenticity. So I'm a real person. Some people will say, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that. Well, the great thing is that actually we do what we think is right for us and our customers, because we're not part of some great big humongous sort of global business. So it kind of goes with the territory a little bit. I don't like seeing, but at the beginning I didn't want to put myself out there, because I said I'm definitely not the poster girl for it, because we've got customers who are anywhere from 40 something to forever. But then people said, well, we like seeing you and hearing a few things. I don't like looking at myself, and I've got my terrible lockdown hair at the moment, which is all a bit long, but I'm growing it, so I'm just going to see what happens. But so it sort of goes with the territory, and I don't take things personally if people are rude or it's just, it's sad, isn't it, that people,
it is.
People forget that there are real people. Unfortunately, as I say, it doesn't really bother me, but it sometimes, I mean, there was one lady who made a comment about my hair and said, she looks terrible, she's definitely not going to be selling any hair products looking like that. And I did respond, and I said, oh, hi, I like my hair to just look a bit messy and undone. That's just the way that I like it. And then another customer jumped on and said, yes, I'm like that, Jayne. And, I just, get up and I go and, sort of look after my, horse in the morning, and that's what I do. And then the original woman posted a picture of a horse and said the horse looks better than you do. Or, it was really, and it really made me laugh, because I just thought, gosh, who's got the energy or the time to sort of do that? It was funny, but it doesn't really bother me. You sort of roll with it, don't you?
Yeah, and you do use, what I love about your advertising is you do use authentic women in your campaigns. They are your customers. Do you think there's going to be a shift in the marketing across the board in some of these bigger brands as well, to start seeing more authentic women of diversity?
I think there is. I think the risk is being tokenistic. That now if you look at any of the big brands or retailers campaigns, there's going to be a grey one, there might be a plus size one, there might, so I think that I think seeing silver and grey haired women now feels much more normal. But I think it is important for it not to be tokenistic. So when you see those real sort of high fashion shoots and it's a grey haired woman, and it's still a particular stylized kind of look. But for me personally, I just love to see more grey-haired women, and women of all colours, shapes, sizes, just represented, because it's what you don't see that then doesn't feel it doesn't feel as acceptable. So if we were all seeing images of healthy, vibrant, stylish women with gorgeous hair like yours, for example, we would all just accept that as much more of the norm.
I really hope it does change. But I do think you're right. I think the problem is you see tokenistic campaigns, and I suppose you've got to start somewhere. It's making sure that feeds through to their websites and their e-com, and it's a regular thing and not just a one-off, isn't it?
Yeah, I think also there are the things like emojis. So if you get an emoji for an old person, it'll always be a little sort of grey-haired granny with a little grey bun on top. It's that sort of lazy signifying of old age, which is always grey. And it's in people's language, and it's funny because, I work with a lot of young people, and sometimes I could be in a meeting, I'm usually the oldest person there, and someone might be talking about the over 60s or whatever, and we'll talk about grey-haired grannies or whatever, and it's in a really casual way without really thinking about it. So I think there's a lot of lazy stereotyping. you know, whether it's, you know, the over 60s discount at the cinema, which is, you know, Silver Wednesdays or whatever. And, you know, aging isn't what it used to be, is it? So
no, I mean, you described yourself, I think, as a self-confessed beauty addict at some point.
Yeah.
How do you feel about aging?
I think it's far better than the alternative.
Yeah.
I mean, I was widowed 5 years ago. My husband was 59, and I think that life is for living. I hate the sort of talking yourself old thing. Yeah. In terms of what I see when I look in the mirror, I feel very relaxed actually about it. Yeah. I don't feel that I want to cling on to looking younger. I think it shifts, you know, into wanting to feel fitter, stronger. I feel full of zest for life. So I don't fear aging at all, because I think beauty comes with in all sorts of ways. And I think I've got much more relaxed, I suppose, about the way that I look as I've got older. And I can remember some years ago reading some research that said that the stats aren't quite right, but that women feel most confident about the way they look at the point when they actually think their looks have gone. Which is so sad, because you know, we can all identify with that, can't we? That when you're younger, you sort of, you're self-critical, and you can look back on it and think, wow, actually I look pretty good. Yeah. And then you get really comfortable in your skin at the time when you think that you haven't got it anymore, but you're comfortable with it, and that's sad, really sad.
It really is.
So I just feel, I hate all of that, you know, oh God, it's another birthday and all of the rest of it. I hate all of that, because, as I say, I'm 63 and I think I've got a whole other act yet to come. Don't really know what that is, but I feel full of life. And I do happen to have grey hair, and I'm more passionate about us not all talking ourselves old, really, before we have to, because extreme old age is no joke. You know, my father's 93, it's not easy, is it? But gosh, you know, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, you know, we're still young. Yeah. And you found a new passion later in life, haven't you, with your business, which I think makes a massive difference, doesn't it, to how you feel about every day you wake up, having that passion. Yes, it does. And I think the other thing is that, you know, it is a very, very small business, and I'm quite cautious about it, because it's not about, you know, taking over the world and turning it into this sort of mega huge thing. I think the other assumption is that anybody doing something entrepreneurial is, you know, 20-something in their bedrooms. It's not about, there's lots of women doing, and men, I'm sure, but, you know, doing entrepreneurial things at all sorts of different scales. 40, 50 plus, and don't write yourself off, is what I would say to people. You know, you can have a go at things, and what's the worst? I always say to myself, you know, what's the worst that's going to happen? You know, it's not going to work, and provided I've not done it in a way that's put anything at risk, you know, it'll all be fine. And I say, you know, it'll all be fine, and even if it's not fine, it'll be fine. Yeah, that's such a great attitude. I mean, how do you see the business in the next 5 years? Do you have kind of a plan, or do you just see how it goes? Obviously, COVID's had a bit of an impact, hasn't it? Well, it has, but I think what's been interesting at the start of this, I wondered what would happen, but we're an online brand, really, and we've actually found that, you know, business has been good in the last 4 or 5 months, and I think there is even more of a shift towards women not dyeing their hair, and also obviously there's been a shift to online shopping, which has helped us. I think that I'm acutely aware that even though we are growing, it's still tiny, and therefore there are so many more women for us to reach, and we do sell all over the world. And we would love to find a way to be in the US in a bigger way, but we're doing it in a relatively slow and sort of steady way, which again, I could have, you know, sort of gone in and thought, right, how do I go in and sort of do world domination? But it would have involved more sort of personal risk than I was prepared to take. So I sort of didn't do it like that. I think the next thing for us, we're looking at how we can create, for example, a packaging-free bar shampoo, because, you know, a lot of our customers, like all of us, are really concerned about single-use plastics. So we've got some thinking around that, but we just want to keep the sort of steady growth that that we've got, and try and find more women who want to be inspired by our community, really, because that's the important thing, to feel liberated enough not to dye their hair if they feel pressured to.
Yeah. So let's talk about the products, because I think people quite often assume that if you've got grey hair, it's really easy to maintain and you don't have to worry about it. But there's a lot of, I found that quite a shock that the texture of my hair changed. So it suddenly became quite wiry. And then it reacts to hairspray and heat, so it often goes quite yellowy. So tell me about the products and the different products that you have.
Yeah. Well, we've got 6 products in the range. And again, we've kept it very tight because I don't think that you need masses of different things. So we have 2 shampoos, Glorious and Brilliant. Brilliant is our soft violet shampoo. A lot of people think, grey hair, purple shampoo. The very deep purple shampoos can be very scary, but if your hair is a bit yellowy, then Brilliant is fantastic for a sort of brightening boost. Glorious is our everyday creamy super cleansing formula, which I use most of the time. I use Brilliant occasionally. Then we have a conditioner that goes with both of those, a Life Shine oil, which can be used on damp hair, on dry hair, which is wonderful for glossing over strands and just generally smoothing some of those really wiry ones that you get. A deep conditioning mask, Intense Luster mask, which is great. That's got our soft violet hue to it as well, and that's great if you have got a bit of yellowing. And then our signature shushing cream, as we call it, which is great for texture.
I love that.
Otherwise, really, really good. So it is a very condensed range, but it's what we do like to say to people is that you can mix and match things. And I've been experimenting since my hair's got a little bit longer. Sometimes I'll put a bit of shushing cream on when it's wet and sort of scrunch it up. It definitely has been a bit drier in this weather, and I'll use a little bit of Life Shine oil sometimes just to sort of smooth over the top. But I think the main thing I would say to people is that you don't realise, unless you've got white or grey hair can get very grubby, and unless it's white, people don't see how grubby it is. But it's like running your finger down a white wall. Your hair will pick up just anything from using a bronzer brush to anything else. So although it seems really obvious, keeping it clean I think is the sort of number one thing I would say. What's the best piece of advice you were given during the growing your hair out? I think during the I think there's no quick fixes. I think that's the first thing. I think lots of people, and I think you might have seen the lovely pictures of Sharon Osbourne when she went from her red hair to her silver. I think she had an amazing colorist who kind of did that. But I think my main piece of advice, and you've alluded to it already, is find a pro-grey hairdresser. Just sort of hold your hand through it, because also if you keep having your hair trimmed and shaped and you've got somebody kind of cheering you on, I think that would be my sort of number one thing. I think that it's easier definitely if your hair is shorter, harder if it's longer, but I think that certainly what I did, I had I let my hair go a bit lighter, and then I had a few low lights and things put in it so that there wasn't so much of a harsh line coming through. But I think you get to the point where I think you have to kind of just decide that you're committing, and that's the point at which I think some people sort of give up, because they think, oh no, you've got to go slightly through the pain barrier, I think. That's what I found anyway. I don't know about you. Yeah, definitely. And I was lucky because I had really short hair, and it was like a pixie cut, so it was a lot easier. But my sister's got super long hair, and she's now grown her hair out. It took her a lot longer, but it is just that perseverance. Yes, yeah. And I think at the beginning, there's the bit at the beginning where people think, oh gosh, Jane really ought to go to the hairdressers. And then once you get past the point where it looks deliberate, it's easier. Because it's the beginning bits where people think, oh, she's definitely forgotten to go, and all of the rest of it. And once people know that that's what you're doing, and one of the things I've noticed actually since lockdown or during lockdown, that people seem to be much more relaxed about showing their roots. So I don't know whether that's because people are now thinking, do you know what, I have gone through the pain barrier, I've had 3 months without a hair colour, and I've got sort of 2 inches of growth or whatever on the top, and I'm just gonna I just feel as if I've seen a lot more people I have definitely about that. It's been much more topical, hasn't it? Yeah, definitely. So
People are really, really bad at taking compliments, particularly women. So if you could give yourself a compliment, what would it be, Jayne?
Oh gosh. I can't think of a single one. That's a really hard question. I think I would say the biggest compliment I could give myself is she never gave up.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. If people want to find more about the brand and about you, how can they find you?
We're on whitehothair.co.uk, and if you can find us on Facebook and Instagram under White Hot Hair.
Lovely. It's been so nice to catch up with you, Jayne. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and I will continue to use your lovely products on my hair, and look forward to meeting you next year.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
So if you'd like to know more about the products, please go to whitehothair.co.uk. You can also find all the social media platforms on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at White Hot Hair. So I will be back next week with another inspiring lady, and in the meantime, keep being fabulous.